Alright, in the last video we set up this Z number to kind of connect the integer variables to the binary variables in Excel. And so we're going to use this effective capacity to let us know whether or not we can actually do what we're trying to do. So all we're going to do is let's add this one to our range names. I'm going to create from selection, left column, and then let's put him up here. So unfortunately, the easiest way to put this paste list in is usually just to repaste everything. And I only highlighted down to here, so that's why it didn't come into play. So using formula, paste names, paste list, and so there we go. Now we got them all in there. And so all I'm going to do, and the reason I put the range name in is because I wanted to be able to drag this without having to lock it in. I'm going to take whatever my binary variable is, and I'm going to multiply it by my Z value. And then I will drag this over. Now, as fun as having a billion in there, I am going to want to change that because it's not going to fit in these cells. So now what's going to happen is we're going to tell Excel, hey, you have to be less than or equal to this effective capacity. So we're going to put this in as a constraint. So right now you see that we violate the constraints. So in order to be able to make these shorts, it's going to have to put a 1 here, which gives us our effective capacity. Now those little number signs, hashtags, whatever, they're appearing because all that means is the number's too large to be seen in the window. So I'm going to go. I'm just going to change this to 100,000. There we go. And actually, let's go through here. And just to make it easier to read, I'm going to go in here to number, use the thousand separators, no decimal points, hit OK. So there we go. Now it's 100,000, which is sufficiently large because it's a lot bigger than what our solution is going to give us. So now what this is going to do is this is going to force Excel to go, okay, well, if you want to make shorts, you got to put a 1 in there. So we're going to go into our solver. And that's all we need to connect the integers to the binaries. So I'm going to go into my solver and I'm going to add a new constraint. And so we're just going to add another constraint, and we're going to say that our units produced has to be less than or equal to what our new capacity requirement says. And so we're going to hit OK. So we add that in there, and units produced has to be less than or equal to our effective capacity, and we are going to solve. Now, found a solution. Everything is great. We're looking good. I'm going to hit OK. Now you see, it didn't change our units produced because it was already at the optimal for the units produced. What it did change, though, is now it's renting the equipment, because now we have a way to connect those units produced to the renting of equipment. So the integer variable, the binary variable. And this is a pretty powerful thing to do. We'll actually be doing it quite a bit in a lot of these examples, because we just have to make sure that we tie those together. So if we look at it, our optimal solutions, 966 shorts, 379 jackets. So just renting those two pieces of equipment. Now let's look at our constraints and figure out what's binding. So let's look at labor hours. Now when I just look at the numbers, it might appear that neither of these are binding because neither of them run right up to the constraint. But something is stopping them, so one of them has to be binding. You will always have at least one binding constraint. No matter what you do, something's going to stop stuff. So is it the labor? Well, the labor hours, I've got 2 labor hours left. I'd be able to produce 2 more pair of shorts because I have 2 hours there. So if I go, so this is non-binding because I have time. I have a slack of 2 hours. So if I look at the cloth, though, the cloth is, I only have a half a square yard of cloth left. Now the shorts take 2.5, the jackets take 5.5, so this would be a binding constraint because we cannot make anything else. We cannot produce any more units of the product if there were no other constraints. Labor hours we can. If there wasn't the cloth constraint, we could still make 2 pairs of shorts, but the cloth is binding. The cloth is what is stopping us from doing anything else. Alright, so this is an example of how we tie those binary variables to the integer variables so we can turn on and off things. Pretty useful way of solving in Excel. We'll use this a lot with factories and other things. So with that, if there are any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.